The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Only the NFL could make enormous news with a schedule leak. Not the full schedule. Oh, no. We don't get that until Wednesday. A schedule leak. They've thrown out a crumb for all of us who are so hungry for NFL news. The season opener. September 4th, Thursday night, the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles will open up at home against the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, my God. Got to sit down. Woo! That's how they own the calendar. It's big news. And they leaked it out about an hour ago. There are going to be more schedule leaks. Oh, not to worry. More schedule leaks to come before we get to the big announcement on Wednesday night, in which they turn into like a 2-hour primetime special. I think it's on both ESPN and the NFL Network. And by the way, some interesting news on that as well. The report is that Rich Eisen is going back to ESPN. He was the centerpiece at the beginning of the NFL Network like 20 years ago, maybe more than that. And he has been their guy. He's anchored their draft coverage. He does their Sunday morning coverage. He's the main man at the NFL Network. And there have been reports that ESPN is going to buy that. So that might be the first step in that. That'll be interesting to follow, and we'll pass along details as they become available. We'll also dive into this Bill Belichick story. My God, who'd have thought it has gotten to this with what Pablo Torre reported late last week, that the girlfriend, Jordan Hudson, has been banned from the North Carolina campus. The school has denied that, but they do say that she's not an employee. She ran once again for Miss Maine, finished third. Old Bill was there, trying to be as incognito as possible, but people certainly got a glimpse of him. And where this is going, who knows? But there is one interesting angle on this. There's a $1 million buyout on June 1st. Now, I don't know how that works. I don't know if the school can buy him out for $1 million or Belichick can buy himself out. But this is going in the wrong direction. And if he wants to get back in the NFL, which I think at this point is going to be nearly impossible, this is not helping in any way. And we'll get to all the juicy details on that. Meantime, and this is what playoff basketball sometimes is all about, what you do in the regular season doesn't necessarily tell what you're going to do in the playoffs. And the Cleveland Cavaliers are in trouble. They're down 3-1 to the Indiana Pacers, and they are headed home for Game 5. Okay, that's going to be helpful. But I don't know how much you watched last night, but this was nothing like the final score indicates. Pacers won by 20 over the Cavaliers, 129 to 109. I think it was 80-39 at the half. This was just a beatdown by the Indiana Pacers, who are, of course, the lower seed here. And the real concern is Donovan Mitchell, who did not play in the fourth quarter because of an ankle injury. He finished with 12 points, had a bad shooting night, 3 for 11 in 20 minutes, and we don't know whether he's going to be able to return for game number 5. This is do or die now, and it's possible that Cleveland can come back and win the series, but they were a juggernaut during the regular season, and they looked like the best team in the East, but the best teams don't always wind up playing for the NBA championship. And after the beatdown last night, the TNT crew, and there was no Shaq last night, so it was Jalen Rose in, but it was Kenny and Barkley and Ernie looking at where the Cleveland Cavaliers are at this point.
The Cavs in trouble. And the reason why I say that, they kept talking about force in the press conference. Here's why. Their bigs played soft today. Mobley, Allen, and Hunter, they combined for 17 total points. Wow. While the bigs on the other side, Pascal, Obi Toppin, and Miles Turner, had 61 points. That's just unacceptable in a playoff game for a team that won over 60 games this year. And when you talk about getting respect, this is the time of year you get that respect. Now, if they get bounced like this, they're going to start to be looked at as a regular season team until they show us they can get it done in the postseason.
And the plot thickens with the Donovan Mitchell situation here going into Tuesday as they try to stay alive and force another game in Indiana.
You know, the one thing about this series, they've never played, not just at full strength, but they never played the type of basketball they played in regular season. And a lot of it was based on the fact that guys were in and out of the lineup. You start the series without Darius Garland playing, and so who's a big part of their offense. So we really hadn't seen the real Cleveland Cavaliers, and then if he goes down,
you didn't think Game 3 was a pretty good indication of what Cleveland
really, because
can do?
I mean, that was a must.
You must win, and you go on the road and you go wire
I thought it was
to wire.
a must win, but it also wasn't a must win for Indiana like today was. So they're as I always say, their antennas aren't the same and weren't up the same way. So we haven't seen when they're at full strength for consistent period of time, because I think also they look very out of sync. You know, everything's a thought process, and you can get out of sync very fast when you're playing against good teams. When you're playing in the regular season, you have teams that you might go down to just on your talent alone, you can get your rhythm back. But against Indiana, it's hard to get your rhythm back, and that's going to be difficult even if he is ready to play
but
in
also,
Game 5.
This is the team that, this team made it to the conference finals last year. You know, that Indiana team, they are terrific offensively. Like, people say, hey, we had this argument with Shaq. He said, when they talking about they're not good defensively, he says, we need to get timely stops. I said, you can't get timely stops. Your habits are your habits. But clearly, Coach Carlisle has done a really good job of making those guys like, guys, we got to get better defensively. But when you let those guys run and they're pushing it and the ball is moving, they are tough offensively, man.
Can they do that in Cleveland in Game 5?
Not without Donovan Mitchell.
No, can Indiana replicate this kind of effort?
I think they can. It was heroic how they won the previous game on the road when Halliburton missed a free throw at the end. He dribbled it back out and made the three. They showed that they can get it done. But I expect Cleveland at least play with some pride and not to get eliminated on their home floor, whether Mitchell plays or not.
And let me tell you something, Ernie.
Tell me something, Chuck.
The Cavs got to have a one-game mentality, because let me tell you something.
Well, that's all it is.
No. But if they can win that game, the next game, Game 6, Indiana going to be feeling the heat, because they're going to be like, hey, we don't get this thing done, they're not going to go get Game 7 back in Cleveland. They're not.
Well, okay, Game 6 would be in Indiana, and the Pacers yesterday, of course, they did lose Game 3, but that was incredible. Now, I don't know what's going to be of Donovan Mitchell. If he's healthy, maybe that makes a difference. And teams have come back from 3-1, including the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were the last team to do it in the NBA Finals back in 2016. But this has been really stunning how well Indiana has played. And, Indiana was a team that was a lottery team not that long ago. So I guess it could prove to be some hope for the Wizards, who are, in their annual lottery mode. Like, this is what postseason basketball is like around here. Other cities, yeah, it's great. Boston and Indiana, and even though the Knicks got their doors blown off, they're still up on the Celtics 2-1 with Game 4 tonight. And Minnesota Timberwolves are up 2-1 on the Warriors, and Steph Curry's hurt. There's all kinds of great playoff stories going on. The story here is, how will the ping pong balls land? They have the same odds, the Wizards do, with Utah and Charlotte, 14%. And we'll find out tonight at 7 o'clock. This is probably where they're going to be next year, whether they get Cooper Flag or not. But the Wizards are in a spot where they could be number 1, or they could be as low as number 6. And the way the luck of the franchise has been over the years, when they do get number one, they get Kwame Brown, who is a bust, and they just don't have the ability. It seems the luck ability to get the great player when he's there. John Wall, very good, could have been an absolute superstar, just very good. Cooper Flag, we'll see. Could change the fortunes of the franchise. All right, Capitals tonight. This is not an elimination game. They could lose this game, be down 3-1, and be coming home, and they actually have a few extra days because they won't play again until Thursday. This would be Game 4 tonight, and Game 5 would be Thursday at home. But The real problem with them is, well, they're not scoring goals. So you don't need to be a genius to figure that out. Alex Ovechkin in the 3 games doesn't have a point, doesn't have a goal, doesn't have an assist. And they just got shut out 4-0. The 3 of the 4 goals that they got were in the game that they won, one of them an empty netter at the end of the game. And they are not exactly, facing a do-or-die situation, but it is a backs-to-the-wall situation, which Spencer Carberry said yesterday is...
It was no different in Montreal when you lose Game 3. That's what the postseason's about. We got a lot of experienced guys who've been through this before. It's you reset. We can win a game tomorrow night. Yeah, is it a back-against-the-wall, difficult game? Game 4 in their building after losing Game 3? For sure, but... it's an opportunity to even the series. And so that's what the playoffs is about. You reset, you refocus, and you expect to have your best performance of the season, your best shift of the season, your next one. And that's our guys are really good at that. They've been good at that through the regular season, and we need to have that same mindset going into Game 4.
Game 4 tonight, the confidence that they need to have?
I've always appreciated the fact that our guys are a confident group, and they feel like in any environment, against any team, on any given night, we absolutely can beat anyone in this league. And we've shown that all year long. And last night, all the narrative of us struggling against Carolina, their building, the noise, everything that goes into it, they win the game, but there's a lot of positives that I know our group would take out of being able to be right there with them. We're a couple bounces away, special teams, all that stuff. But we have a confident group.
Okay. And this isn't really any analysis. It seems very simple. But when you're playing with the lead, it's better than playing from behind, though they've done that this year. They were playing from behind and never got there the other night when they lost 4-0. They were playing from behind in Game 2, which they lost. Actually, no, were they up in that game? I forget. They were up. But now they have a situation where the pressure is really going to ratchet up tonight if Carolina scores first.
There's a lot that goes into a start and getting a lead against this team. Zero doubt about that. If you have, as you know, as a player, if you're like, if we don't score first, let's just pack it in. And that's where they're just focused on their next shift and doing the right things, and eventually the goal will go in, or hopefully it leads to a goal. If it doesn't, reset, control your next shift. So, do we need to have a good start in this building and ideally get up on this team? Absolutely. Zero doubt about it. Everybody knows that. If we get behind, should we feel like it's over and we don't have a chance of coming back? No, and we've got to find a way to potentially do that. We did it in Game 4 against Montreal. You've got to find a way to stay with it and potentially find a comeback win. And I don't think our guys, we've been the best comeback win team in the NHL all year, so I don't think even trailing in that game last night, or if we go down 1-0 tomorrow night, I think our guys have a ton of belief and know that we can come back in those situations, even if it is against Carolina in their building.
And not to put all of the weight on Alex Ovechkin, but the fact that he doesn't have a point in this series, and if you're watching the other night, he had a couple of shots, one right on the doorstep of the goal and kind of whiffed on it. And I think, emotionally, if they can get him on the board early tonight, that's going to mean something. I mentioned that in the 3 games, he doesn't have a goal. He doesn't have an assist. Barry Zerluga points out in the Post, the number of times that Ovechkin went 3 consecutive games without a point in the regular season, one. He missed 16 games, of course, but there was only one 3-game stretch when he was playing that he didn't have a goal or an assist. And combine the playoffs and the regular season, he writes, and 34 of Ovechkin's goals came in wins, just 14 came in losses. So, meaning you get a total of 34 wins between the regular season and the playoffs off at least one Ovechkin goal. That doesn't mean if he scores tonight that they'll necessarily win the game, but they've got to get a performance from him. And defensively, John Carlson, by his own admission, had a really bad game the other night, and we're going to hear from him in the next hour. But the takeaway is these are veteran players, been there before, the backbone of the team with Carlson and Ovechkin and Tom Wilson. These are guys who have been there before. They won a Stanley Cup with this team. But now is the time. Now is the time to, as they say, step up. Ever seen anybody step up? But that's what we always say. You got to step up and send the series home even at 2, and then it takes on a whole different complexion. I think that's pretty much the way the playoffs go. You win a game, okay, you're up. You lose a game, oh my God, what are we going to do? And if they win tonight, I think there will be a different feeling. But realistically, they got to get the Stars on track. They got to get Alex Ovechkin going. They got to get John Carlson playing better. The extent of my hockey analysis pretty much starts and ends there. I'm just following what I'm reading and seeing and watching the game, and that's about all I have for you. So we'll see what happens tonight, as we say in the business. We'll see how it all plays out tonight in game number 4. Coming up, we will deal with what is the most salacious story in sports right now. What is going on with Bill Belichick and the girlfriend, Jordan Hudson? A whole new level of reporting from Pablo Torre. He does a podcast called Pablo Torre Finds Out. And what he's found out about her influence, Jordan Hudson's influence on Bill Belichick and, for that matter, the North Carolina football program, staggering. We'll get to what he said about it on the Dan Patrick Show and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
I would say there's only one other Hall of Fame coach that would shock me more about what's going on with Bill Belichick, and that would be Joe Gibbs. Now, it's unimaginable that this would happen with Joe Gibbs, a highly religious man, happily married for many years, suffered a horrible tragedy with the loss of both of his sons before their 50th birthday. But nobody has comported himself as a great family man and a great leader like Joe Gibbs has over the last, 45 years, right? He became the coach of the Redskins 1981, led them to the greatest era that any team has ever had in this area, 4 Super Bowls in 9 years, 3 Super Bowl championships, and a spotless record personally. There's never been a hint of any controversy in his life. And Bill Belichick, while he's been a disagreeable guy at times, a grump, and he is divorced, but there was never anything salacious about his life. He had a girlfriend that he was with, I think, for like 10 years. I'm not sure if they lived together or not, but you would see them publicly from time to time, but that was about it. And about the time that things ended with the Patriots, we get word that he's broken up with her, and he's got a significantly younger girlfriend, a 49 years younger girlfriend, almost young enough to be his granddaughter. And you go, well, he's very wealthy, and he's an adult. She's an adult. She's of age, so okay, consenting adults, gagazint. But now, as the layers of the onion we begin to unravel here, get unpeeled, we look at what is an unbelievable mess for a coach who has done everything in his career to make sure that there were no distractions with his football team. Now, there have been distractions, of course, some of them created by Bill Belichick. There was Spygate, where he was stretching the rules and was ultimately popped with a first-round pick and a big fine and all that. We also had the Deflategate with the footballs, whether he was behind it or Tom Brady was behind it, who knows? But Brady got a 4-game suspension. The team got a big penalty, but they move on from that. Those are football-related things. This is totally different. And we have seen the girlfriend scantily clothed whenever possible around him, that she seems to have her eye on him all the time. And then things hit an inflection point 2 weeks ago when, out of nowhere, because this is not something that show does. This is CBS Sunday Morning, hosted by someone who's had a career in television, who's always been highly respected, Jane Pauley, and she does this nice, easy Sunday morning show where they do light features about people who do wonderful things in their lives, and they go to break with pictures of flowers and soft music, just kind of ease you into Sunday morning. People drink their coffee while they watch this show. And out of nowhere, kaboom, here's Bill Belichick on promoting his book, and CBS was apparently so annoyed that his girlfriend, who is, I guess, identified as the brand manager, Jordan Hudson, was constantly interrupting this interview And then when the question was asked, how did you two meet? A very simple question, because it's not like he's been hiding her. She's in plain sight all the time. And she said, oh, no, you don't have to answer that. And woo! And it became pretty clear that they felt that she was an annoying presence all the time. Even reports that she walked out for like 30 minutes and wanted him to follow her, which he didn't. And, things have kind of gone haywire since then. And Pablo Torre had been investigating this for a long time. He does a podcast called Pablo Torre Finds Out. And, sometimes it's something that's not necessarily in the news. Like recently, he looked at Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game. And he found that there were some things that took place in this game that would not have happened in a regular game had Wilt not been going for 100. But it was not, it was not big news that would wind up in People magazine, or they still have the National Enquirer or something like that. But now he's done a deep dive on this, and he's found that he says that she has been banned from the North Carolina football facility. She's not allowed to show up. The school has since denied that, but they do say that she doesn't work for the team. Torre on Friday on the Dan Patrick Show, as this news trickled out that she had been banned, and also you'll hear, if you wait for the end, this is about 7 minutes here, you'll hear what he says about what a school employee said about this woman. He said he talked to 11 people involved with the program and found out some things that, again, would be absolutely mind-blowing if, especially if Belichick was in his heyday with the Patriots winning the 6 Super Bowls. And as I say, the only person this would shock me more about is Joe Gibbs, which would never happen. But it's going on with Bill Belichick, and listen to the sordid details that Torrey lays out with Dan.
I spent months of my life in the Jordan Hudson rabbit hole. I talked to 11 people who dealt directly with her. And a couple of things. Number one is that there was an enormous meeting at the University of North Carolina where the athletics department had to have a meeting with the football people and say that Jordan Hudson cannot be the face of our program anymore. She cannot be on the field. She cannot be around the building. She has taken too much when it comes to the airspace around how people think of the coach, the greatest coach in football history, arguably, who, when they hired him to be the highest paid coach in the history, well, forget about any present day North Carolina stats, just the highest paid public employee in the state of North Carolina right now. It was the opposite, right? They had no idea this was coming. Everybody is now actively worried, including, I can also report, members of Bill Belichick's own family, that a thing that takes decades to build, reputation premised on leadership and discretion and privacy and discipline and every other term that now feels like it's the opposite of what his reputation is now in this news cycle, they feel like that's being destroyed. And it's because he gave the power to run his new media empire, now that he has been freed from the NFL for the first time in decades. He gave that to a woman whose age has actually been misreported a lot, I also learned, but we can now say is actually today 24 years old.
What's Bill's reaction? Any public reaction to this?
It's hard to discern because she is the person who is on the emails, on the texts, is often ghostwriting. So his reaction will be mediated, I believe, with her. I will point out that in New York City, where I live, on Wednesday, there was a talk that Bill gave to promote his book, the book that was disastrously, you could argue, non-promoted at the CBS Sunday Morning fiasco. He gave a talk and Jordan wasn't there. There might be something like a deliberate, if not to borrow the terms of like another Hollywood separation, not quite a conscious uncoupling, but certainly a public difference in how they are presenting her omnipresence. And yeah, what I can tell you is that family members of Bill see this as something that is, they have been investigating her too for a very long time.
If the CBS interview doesn't play out like it did, do you think there's any change within North Carolina with her role with Bill?
The fascinating thing about Belichick is that he has this inner circle, people who have insulated him as best they can from all of these concerns, right? And so I'm going to say, spoiler alert, answer to your question is no. And the reason is because he is a football creature with a bunch of, frankly, yes men around him. Matt Patricia, Josh McDaniels. That's how they were described to me, not my editorial judgment. And the CBS thing seeped, has some septic but also seeping vibes to it. It got inside of his bubble, right? That book, the tabloid avalanche, happening because she did something that and you know this, Dan, a savvy PR person doesn't do, actually, which is forget that she's on tape, on camera, on mic, interjecting. And I'm told also that, yes, the reports are true, that there's 30 more minutes of her interrupting, taking control of an interview that was supposed to be, frankly, a puff piece, an extraordinarily positive thing about this book, about his leadership style, which could then be transferred to non-football people. That was the premise of it, ironically. That's what opened the floodgates, man. And at that point, it became, how do we deal with this? And at that point, lots of people realized now is our moment to say what we've been seeing behind the scenes, which is one of the crazier sagas, man. I haven't even got into some of the other stuff here. If I can just give you one brief anecdote just to help illustrate the point here. There was a commercial that Belichick was filming, a 7-figure commercial, not the Super Bowl commercial, by the way, which we reported also. Jordan Hudson insinuated herself into by representing herself as his agent to Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, a thing that Affleck and Damon still talk about to this day, by the way, that she was in that commercial, that she got paid, that they negotiated with her for Belichick. Separate commercial, earlier commercial for one of the podcasts he was doing. 7-figure shoot, scripted. She shows up. She's not a person in the public view. No CBS interview yet. None of this stuff has happened. She shows up, and she, again, wants to be in the commercial. And she's talking about how this would be a hard launch. That's the relationship term I've been given, a hard launch of their relationship, public announcement. And she says, hold on, I have an idea. She leaves. Some time passes. The shoot actually ends, the real shoot. She comes back, and she's wearing a yellow polka dot bikini and a sun hat. And she wants to film a scene where she is by the pool with Bill, trying to get his attention. All of this, again, very on the nose, the meta and the real. But that happens, and everybody there is like, what do we do with this? Like, this is, Bill Belichick is not betraying any emotional change. He's just going along with all of this because that's him, they're realizing. And they decide we need to do the thing where we tell her we're shooting a scene. They grab a camera guy, and they proceed to shoot something that I am told they're not even sure the camera was on. They point a camera, they have her do something, and they say, good, yep, got it, good. And that's just what it's been like. That was at the beginning of her taking control of the media empire. Everything from there is sort of flowing kind of logically once you hear about that.
And I said this after the CBS interview. If Bill has any hopes of getting back into the NFL, this really hurts you because you're giving control to Bill, but are you giving control to Bill and there's no way an NFL team is going to go, you know, I think Bill, now's the time to bring him in. But in the final 30 seconds, what do you think is next in this story?
I think you're going to see people push back on the reporting out of North Carolina that I've said, which is that there was a power struggle in which the adults had to intervene. I think there will be disagreement about that. And I think that what is happening to my phone will continue to happen, which is that it will continue to melt. I signed up for this. I get it. Aggregation, interviews like this are all great. I hope people listen to the episode. But I can tell you that everybody who's dealt with Jordan Hudson, and one person said, quote, she is the worst person I've ever dealt with on earth, and I have dealt with actual sociopaths. I'm not saying that is everybody. I'm just saying this story, Dan, is extreme, and there's a lot, including injectable erectile dysfunction drugs, as just a brief tease.
Worst person I've ever dealt with, and I've dealt with sociopaths. Whoa. That's Pablo Torre. He's got the podcast. It's about a 45-minute podcast. I'll try and listen to it later today. But that is what he has found out, and in what is exactly the title of the show, just how awful this is with this woman. And he says now she's 24, but there was a timeline of the meeting which could go back as far as 5 years ago, meaning that he may have been dating her when she was 19. Now she's of age, but it's a little more creepy than the age 20 that would sync up with when they supposedly met. And then the commercial stuff there, Just in case you didn't absorb all that, you're probably familiar with the Super Bowl commercial, the Dunkin' Donuts commercial. Ben Affleck, I guess, produces that every year. Affleck and Damon, they do it every year, and he's in it, and she's in it, and she's in it because she negotiated to get him in it, and she wanted to make sure she got in it. But there's another commercial that he's talking about there before their relationship became as renowned as it is, where she had put together a commercial involving him and then halfway through it decided that she wanted to be in it, disappears, comes back in, as the song says, teeny weeny polka dot bikini, or yellow polka dot bikini, as he described there. And she's saying, hey, now it's time for my scene. Cecil B. DeMille, point the cameras at me. And so they go, well, she's tough to deal with here, so we'll just pretend that we're going to shoot this. And they go, yeah, okay, move over here, move the lighting. Okay, got it, thanks. And they didn't shoot anything. Oh, my God, what a mess they got going on here. Now, here's another angle in this. I don't know how exactly this works. You hear about buyouts all the time. When a coach wants to leave, he's got a buyout, and often these are easy buyouts when they're negotiated so you can move on to a better job if you get it. And as we saw with Kevin Willard and all the mess that went on at Maryland a couple of months ago. But the contract that Belichick has with North Carolina it's a $10 million buyout now, but only a couple of weeks from now, June 1st, it shifts to a $1 million buyout. Could one of two things happen? And I don't know how the buyout is written. Can North Carolina get off the hook from him for $1 million? Because the way this train is rolling down the tracks might be in their best interest to do this. This could be an unbelievable embarrassment, not just for Belichick, but for the school. If they win one or two games and she's a constant presence, even though they say she doesn't work for the school, she hasn't been banned. I mean, can she be showing up on the sidelines during practices, which she has done, wearing, by the way, 5-inch boot heels and a very little clothing except an overcoat that she was wearing because it was cold? I mean, yeah, Belichick has hated distractions all of his life. He's done everything. We're on to Cincinnati. Yeah, and now this? So could the school buy him out for $1 million? That's my question. And the second part of this is, could there be an intervention by the family of Bill Belichick to say to him, oh, man, look, I know you want to get back in the NFL. You want to break Don Shula's record. I think he needs 15 wins to do it, so take at least a couple of years to get that done. But if you have any hope of doing that, you need to divorce yourself from this situation. So if I were you, Dad, Bill, whatever they call him, I would buy it out right now. I'd bail right now. You got a coaching staff in place. They'll be able to have a season. You got some players there. But get out now, because if this thing unravels anymore, not only are you not going to get a job in the NFL, but your legacy is gone. Joe Gibbs joked when he came back in 2004 that his wife told him, don't do it, you'll ruin your legacy. And to a small degree, it hurt it. He didn't come back and achieve the success that he had the first time around, but who would? I mean, that was one of the all-time runs in sports history. And he did make the playoffs twice in 4 years, which was the high watermark for any coach who worked for Dan Snyder during those 24 years. But, it ended with the game where he had they did the memorial to Sean Taylor after he died, and we'll get to Sean Taylor's brother coming up shortly. But he's trying out with the team. But remember, in that game against Buffalo, which was the first game after his death, that Joe Gibbs used back-to-back timeouts at the end of the game to make a very long field goal, a makeable field goal for the Buffalo Bills, and they beat them. And what was said and written at the time was, oh, good old Joe, he's had his day in the sun, but it's time to move on. The first time he retired, he's 52 years old. He certainly, if he wanted to coach, he could have coached a lot longer than that. But I think that in this case, this is just a complete embarrassment for Bill Belichick, who is the winningest coach in the Super Bowl era. He doesn't have as many wins as Don Shula, but he's got 6 Super Bowls, and Shula's got 2. So I just wonder if we're looking at the final weeks of this. It would not stun me at all if there is a separation of Belichick and North Carolina in the next couple of weeks. This was kind of an odd marriage to begin with. You know, a coach who had spent all of his career in the NFL. You know, he started out as like a gopher for the Baltimore Colts, 1975, 50 years ago, and rose to the highest level ever as a coach. But with what's going on and what's going on with the girlfriend and the embarrassment that she's causing, and he's causing himself by being complicit in this, you know, get out. And whether you coach again or not, don't go out as a joke. And this is what he's become. He's become a punchline. All right, coming up, we'll get to more on the Caps. Also, the Commanders are open for business today in Ashburn. Dan Quinn spoke over the weekend. We'll go through some of what he said and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. So, lost in the sauce from the weekend is the story of Jayden Daniels going on a date. 24-year-old grown man with his mother in the back seat. Yeah, she was spotted by the paparazzi, and her name is Regina Jackson. She has spoken about her involvement with her son. It seems very innocent, and I don't think it's any cause for concern. In fact, it's probably a thing that you can feel good about. It's just, you know, it's a little bit different, but things are different because of the way money runs the game now, and people who want to sink their claws into her son. So we'll take a look at that later in the hour. Also, Spike Lee was on Dan Patrick's show last week, and it's a movie, God, I can't believe how old it is, but it's called He Got Game, and it came out in 1998. Denzel Washington played the dad, and Ray Allen, who's now a retired player. At that time, he looked young enough to maybe be believable as a high school basketball player. Ray Allen played Jesus Shuttlesworth. And the name Jesus came not from, well, Jesus. It came from Earl Monroe. Earl Monroe, when he was growing up in Philadelphia, was known as Black Jesus. And in one scene in the movie, you hear Denzel Washington say, I named you after Earl Monroe, Baltimore, because before they took his game away in New York when he played for the Knicks, when he was playing second fiddle to Walt Frazier, he was the truth. And it still sends chills up my spine. It was some ways kind of a hokey movie. It had a lot of cameos. John Thompson was in it, among other people, as I remember. But anyway, we'll look at that and who was the first choice to play Jesus Shuttlesworth. As good as Ray Allen was, he was not the first choice that Spike Lee had in mind. We are getting more and more of these schedule leaks. The NFL has actually announced this, and I guess it's not a surprise, but it is kind of a surprise. The opening game, which will be September 4th, is Dallas at Philadelphia. The defending champs always open at home, and they always open home on Thursday night, the opening game. It's kind of surprising to me that they would burn Dallas in that game, in that even though Dallas may be a team that doesn't even finish over 500 this year, they always get eyeballs. People watch the Dallas Cowboys. Whoever Philadelphia was going to play in the opening game, people were going to watch it. You could put any team in there. You could put the Carolina Panthers in there if you want to. They get big ratings. But they're burning Dallas in that game for whatever reason. So that's going to be the opening game. Then you have a Friday night game, which is played in, I forget where the site is. It's an overseas game. And they're saying that'll be the Chiefs against the Chargers for the Friday night game. And then the first big Sunday primetime game will be Detroit at the Los Angeles Rams, both of them playoff teams. That makes sense. Sunday Night Football, again, these are just rumored at this point, not announced by the NFL. The only thing they've announced is the opener, Dallas and Philadelphia. Sunday Night Football, Baltimore at Buffalo, which makes sense, playoff rematch. Then Monday Night Football, Green Bay at Pittsburgh. And then for the first Thursday night game, well, the first Thursday night game would be the opener, but this actually makes total sense that they would have Chicago playing at Washington, which would be a rematch of the Hail Mary game. And it's, Jayden Daniels against Caleb Williams again. Only this time the Bears have a new coach, and they should be better. And Washington is coming off a miracle season, so that seems quite likely. I think that's probably going to make. If you want to give prime, because the first game is going to be on NBC, the opening game will be on NBC. But if you want to give prime a game to kick things off in the right way, yes, the Chicago-Washington rematch on the same field. It's amazing that Chicago is here for the third straight year, just the way the schedule works out. They're not a division team, but playing in Washington for the third straight year, which would be the second game of the season, right? Second game of the season for Washington. So they immediately start out with a short week, right? Because the first game is going to be on a Sunday. And then the second game will be on a Thursday. You get a little bit of a mini bye after that, but that's awfully early to play a Thursday game. And I would imagine the limit is 5 for primetime games. I'm imagining they're going to be on for all of them. So get used to night games this year. And according to this rumor, Washington will have the first Thursday night game against the Chicago Bears. All right, Capitals tonight needing to rebound. They had an ugly game the other night where they lost 4-0. The comments after the game, though, was kind of surprising. Not as bad as what they were coming off the opener where they lost 2-1 in overtime. It just got away from them. And uncharacteristically, John Carlson, longtime great defenseman for the team, had a really bad night. Which he admits, and is ready to shake that off for Game 4 tonight.
I'm well aware of me and my game and what I'm capable of, and I can be better. And I just as the team will do, I think I'm looking forward to another chance tomorrow night. There's I know the same a lot of noise around that, but. I'm not worried about it.
Oh, so tonight, tomorrow night, he said that was yesterday, so tomorrow night now tonight. As far as losing 4-0, he says that happens.
No team's going to have a full 60 in this playoffs against any of these teams. So, but having that mentality, having to weather through some storms of flurries, of shifts, of little stretches, yes. But I think I think we feel better about where we're at right now, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow night.
And the question is, can they get Alex Ovechkin untracked, which would be good, obviously, for both scoring, but I think also an emotional lift for the team because he's come up dry at the wrong time. He's gone 3 games without a point. During the entire regular season, he only had 1 3-game stretch without a point, only 1. And he's done this now in these last 3 games against Carolina. They're ready for him. But the number Barry Zverluga has here for what his goal scoring has meant in the regular season, wins came in 34 games, which Ovechkin had a goal, just 14 in losses, meaning they've got a much higher percentage chance of winning the game if he scores a goal than not. Let's put it, or that a goal means more to the team in terms of success if Ovechkin scores. So they got to get him going tonight. They got to get more chances. They had some chances. I mean, if you watched the game on Saturday, you saw there were a lot of scoring chances early, and if they get one of those, maybe the complexion of the game changes. But right now, they're dry. And if you look at the 3 games they played so far, they scored 3 in Game 2, including an empty netter. They scored only 1 in the first game in overtime and none in game number 3. And that's obviously not going to get it done. All right, Dan Quinn and the Commanders opening up year 2, really. I guess this is really the beginning of it. We had rookie minicamp over the weekend. One of the more interesting stories, not just for them, but around the league. Gabe Taylor, Sean Taylor's younger brother, has been brought in for basically a tryout is what they call it. I don't know what will happen at the end of, I guess it's this week where they will be mixed in with the veterans and they'll make some decisions on these guys. It's not the guys that they drafted, obviously, and it's not the guys that they brought in as undrafted free agents. They brought in another group of players who are there essentially on a tryout. Now, if this were the Dan Snyder team, the Dan Snyder, whatever they would be called, Washington football team, Commanders, or if he hadn't, basically punched himself in the face, they might still be the Redskins. Who knows? But if he were still the owner of the team, Gabe Taylor would make the team, no matter how good he is. But we'll get to what he said about his opportunity that's being given to him. And I don't think it's not a publicity stunt. These guys don't do things that way. I think this is just something that they think, could work out. And more than anything else, if it doesn't work out here, it may give him opportunities someplace else, or they may see enough to put him on the practice squad. He's much smaller. He's not the same size as his brother, and he's about the same age that Sean Taylor was killed. Sean Taylor played here for 3.5 years. He only played 3 years of college football at Miami before he was the number 4 pick of the draft in 2004, and tragically was killed in 2007. But the brother, Gabriel Taylor, played 5 years at Rice, so it's a little bit different situations. He's about 23. Anyway, let me start with the Dan Quinn stuff, and it actually starts with a question from Nikki Jabala, and it gets to the schedule release. Now, this is rumored that they're going to play the first Thursday night game against Chicago, which makes total sense, and then they would play. The rumor is in Week 16, which I think is November. Or week 11, excuse me. So it's November 16th that they would play the Miami Dolphins in Barcelona. So Nikki gets to that, but first asks about the second-round pick from Ole Miss, Trey Amos.
With Trey Amos, there was a report about his back injury that was revealed during the pre-draft process. What made you comfortable with where he's at physically to take the second?
That's probably a better one for Adam, but really that from – each team has their own medical report and how it goes, and so from our club, it was something that we were comfortable with.
Completely different topic. Schedule comes out next week. How do you feel about going to Spain?
Sin comentarios. No comment. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you on that one. We'll see Wednesday, I guess, what happens.
Who knew that Dan Quinn was so fluent in Spanish? Well done. But yeah, I think that's going to happen. That makes sense because they are playing the Dolphins, and you want a sexy matchup for the Dolphins, and that would be a game that would obviously be of interest. This is more on Amos and what they see for him. He's a big corner, which I like. Mike Sanderstill has worked out for them. He's small, but to have somebody big back there is going to be an added bonus in the backfield, defensive backfield. And here's what Quinn expects of him.
He'll play outside mostly, but it's the length and to be able to defend these contested passes. So often when you're playing man-to-man or close matching and coverage, having that size and length to defend, the guys on the outside, that's one of the things that we really liked about Trey's game. And so adding that, not everybody plays down on the line. Some guys play off, but for the people that do, we want to feature that. And so just having versatility to play in different ways, that's a big deal.
And one more from Quinn. Boy, what a difference a year makes. Last year, you're bringing players into what had been a toxic organization. Now, they're turning the page, but there's guys who've been there before who've seen all that, and they had yet to prove anything. We really didn't know much about Dan Quinn a year ago at this time. And now he's indoctrinating young players into what is a very healthy situation.
So far, they've really come in wanting to go for it. And it's an excellent place to come as a young player to come and play football. We're a developmental staff, so we're absolutely pouring into them as hard as we can. There's a number of coaches on the staff that have also seen the game from the lens of the helmet. They've been in this camp. They know what that experience is like. They know what's ahead. And there's some excellent mentors that will meet them here on Monday. This is what you should do. This is what you should look for. And if I was coming into a team, you'd almost give anything to have teammates like they're going to experience on Monday morning. And we're looking forward to it.
Monday morning now, so I guess the workouts are going on now in Ashburn as the veterans are reporting for off-season workouts. These are voluntary. For the rookies, I would assume it's not. And the rookies getting their first taste of things over the weekend. And then the interest in Gabe Taylor, who is the younger brother. I think it's the half-brother of Sean Taylor. And if you look at the age, he was about 5 or 6 years old when Sean Taylor was tragically killed. He did have a college career, pretty decent college career. Whether that'll translate to the pros, we don't know. But he played 5 years at Rice because of the COVID year. He had 10 interceptions, one of which he returned for a touchdown. And you could say, because of the history with this team, that, maybe there's sort of a feel-good thing to it, that they did this as something of a public relations move. There's no downside to it. It doesn't hurt. I don't know if they passed on somebody who might become an NFL star. I would think that it would be very difficult here over other places because of all the attention that he would get. But he seems to handle it very well. This is part of the interviews that he did with reporters over the weekend, and talking about, he is his own guy. He's not Sean Taylor. He knows that. He doesn't have the size. He doesn't have the athletic ability that his brother had, but he's got a dream, and he's going to try and carry it out in the same place that his brother became a legend, and a tragic legend at that. This is Gabe Taylor talking to reporters on Saturday.
It's awesome, man. Just, doing 1 year of high school football and translating to college 4 years and coming here, I couldn't ask nothing better. And I just thank God for the opportunity he gave me, and hopefully I show the team that I can come in and, contribute any way I can if possible.
What was it like putting on the burgundy and gold like your brother wore?
I had to take a moment, take a deep breath when I just looked at the helmet, and, I've been, just watching the Redskins, Commanders all my life, and just, I could have went somewhere else, but I chose here for a reason. And, hopefully I get to put it on again and continue forward with them.
Knowing he walked here, do you kind of feel a different sense walking around here? He was in these same halls, same locker rooms?
No, sir. I take it one day at a time. I don't care what the critics say about my height, and they want to compare me to him, but it doesn't even matter. The only goal I have with this team is the last team standing and to win a championship if they get me here.
Okay, we know what this meant to yourself. What did it mean to your family to have this opportunity?
It meant everything. My dad was like, I want you to go to the Commanders. I want you to go to the Commanders so bad. And so, I really wanted to come here too. And I was thinking about it. I took like a couple days after. That's why I didn't say nothing after the draft. I really just wanted to pray on it, and I think I made the right decision.
You've been out here on the field now. What's your biggest takeaway from day 2 on this field?
Just communication. The only way the defense can work is communication, and you got to know the playbook. And so just having time with these guys, try out guys, and see how they want to go with the game and how they approach the game is really awesome to me. And I like this team effort, and so I just love being out there.
What kind of memories do you have? What kind of memories do you have from when you were here, when you were a little kid, or maybe watching your brother from afar, and knowing that you have those? What's it like today, thinking back to those?
The upgrade of the facility for sure. That's one thing. But just coming in through these doors, man, just like all the memories, and then they got the 21 jersey on the wall in the equipment room, and then you just see my brother's name, and it's something I feel like I got to do and to represent him. So best way I can possible to do that.
What would you tell your brother if he was here?
Excuse me?
What would you tell your brother if he was here watching you?
I know you're damn proud of me. All the pressure on my back that I don't feel like people think I feel. Like I don't really care, but I like to see the comments. I'm the type of person that thrives on critics. I'd rather be critic than all the positivity because I got to get better. So I just love to see all the critics.
Well, he seems a little bit defensive. When he was asked about what's it like to be in the same facility as your brother, and he's talks about the. He doesn't want to be the criticism. However he put it, it was a little bit different than what the question was. I like the answer at the end that his brother would be very proud of him. He also said, "Look, he was 5 or 6 years old when his brother died, and he was asked about the facility, and he says a lot better now. I don't know how much he remembers about the facility. It is better now, even then, that's 18 years ago. But kind of interesting that he would say that. So, we'll follow the progress. I would be very surprised if he makes the team. Maybe he gets a shot to go to training camp. We'll find out about that. And if he's on the practice squad, that'd be great. But at this point, way too early to tell what's going to happen there. And then we've got, kind of an innocent story, but, one of interest involving Jayden Daniels. He was spotted on a date in Miami last week. He wanted to go see Formula One. And while he was there, he was on a date, and there was a big, black SUV, which dropped him off at a restaurant with his date. And as the back door was opened up, who do we see in the back seat? Why, it's Regina Jackson, Jayden Daniels' mom. She has not denied that she was there. I don't know if she went inside the restaurant with him. I don't know if she sat in the car, but it was pretty clear she was along for the ride, if we could say it that way. But she's been, she's known that she's been known she's watching out for him. There was a spotting with the women's NCAA tournament that was going on back in March where she sat between him and USC basketball star Juju Watkins. First, you see a picture of the two of them sitting together. It's at a game. They're just sitting in a game talking. She was waiting for her game, I guess, to be played, the game that she got hurt in. But she was watching the other game that was going on. They looked like they were having a good time chatting it up. The next time you see them, she's sitting in between them. Now, that could have been just the way the seats were arranged, and the mom went to the bathroom or the concession stand or something, and he just moved a little closer to hear her. Who knows? But it was a look like, she's not letting anything happen. She's not letting him out of her sight. Also, and this is kind of interesting because 24-year-old man doesn't generally bring his mother as a guest to a wedding. Now, she may have been invited, so that might have been part of the picture, but his former teammate from college, Brandon Ayuk, they played together at Arizona State. He got married, and she was seen dancing with her son at the wedding, which is nice. And they were both invited. He apparently did not show up with a date at the wedding, but his mother was there. It may have been that they both got invitations. That's, the way that works. I don't know if it was necessarily Jayden and guests, but they were there together. And then a series which I'm now watching on Prime, it's been out for a while, goes back to when Jayden Daniels was at LSU, and they did a whole series on NIL, athletes who were making a lot of money off the court, and he was one of them. And she's quoted as saying that she is most concerned about, quote, them girls, and said, so thank God he got a mama like me because it ain't happening. So she's looking out for him as a mother would. There's nothing wrong with that, and I know that he lives with her while he's here during the season, and he makes his off-season home in California where they're both from. But he seems to have been raised right. There's little about him where you would say, there's something not right. His father told him early on, you want to play defensive back? You have the talent to do it. It's a lot different than playing quarterback. If you're going to play quarterback, you're going to have to put the work in. And he puts the work in. He shows up at 5 o'clock in the morning to put the work in. As if you're watching this series on Prime about the NIL stuff at LSU, you see him pulling out of his driveway at 5:30 in the morning to go watch tape at LSU. He's doing this, and I think the parents have split up. But clearly, they've done a great job of parenting a young man who's on his way to is already there as a great player. And, they're just making sure that people who want to approach him and want to get a part of all the money that he's going to make, and I think he's got a chance by the time we get to it, which is, I think, another 3 years, he'll be making, maybe he may get to $100 million a year or close. Right now, it's Dak Prescott at 65. Could he break 80, 90? Who knows? The sky's the limit. But anyway, Regina Jackson was on a podcast which is hosted by Ryan Clark. It's called The Pivot. And she said, look, I had Jayden. Jayden didn't have me. And she said it goes back to even when he was playing Pop Warner football. She didn't like the helmet that he had, and she thought it was inadequate. And she went about becoming the treasurer of the league and raising more money so that all the kids could have better helmets. And she even did it after he left. She's very accomplished in academics. She's got a master's degree in hospital administration and now has picked up a second master's degree in entrepreneurial business. She has become certified as his agent. So when it comes time to negotiate the contract, she will do it. I don't think there's going to be much resistance from the Commanders. They're going to give him whatever they can give him and tell him, hey, we need a little bit of money to sign everybody else. But this is all going in the right direction, it seems to me. So this is part of a lengthy interview that she gave on the Pivot podcast hosted by Ryan Clark, talking about how she sees it as her responsibility to look out for her son.
You know, you were very honest about protecting him. You said predators, also protecting him from women who can be predators. And we've seen that all through sports. We see it after their careers. We see it in business. Being the good woman you are, also raising a daughter, why have you been so diligent about protecting Jayden from the wrong woman?
So first and foremost, I have a meme out there, and it's funny, so I can't laugh. I can only laugh about it. But the whole girls comment was made, first of all, 2 years when he was at LSU, and it was a question asked, like, what is your biggest fear? And that should be every parent's biggest fear. That should be, if you're a star athlete and you're a female in WNBA, that should be your biggest fear is, the men or, the women, because you're a public figure and, your dollar amount is associated with your name. So you never know who really is there for you and who's really against you. And our thing is like, I want Jayden to date. I don't want everybody to say I'm putting it on record. My son can date. He can live freely, makes his own decisions. However, the relationship we have, he does value my opinion because, when my kids were little, I did a lot for them. So, and my kids saw that. My father, my background, I worked too hard to allow anybody at any moment to come in and just, take it away. So I have a view of what I feel a good person is. And, but my son is 24 and he does have to go through things and he has to learn on his own. And, he's a great kid and I'm thankful for him. He's, not like some of these other guys, he's really to himself. He's a homebody. He just really is, loves sports, like he really is. So I'm trying to work on his afterlife after sports because at some point it does end. And I don't want him to just be like, now what do I do? So I want to keep him involved in the world and, have opened up a lot of doors. Like I'm in charge of his foundations. We're trying to build facilities and, back in his hometown that are going to help the youth and things like that. So that's what I'm in charge of on top of his everyday business dealings and, like I said, dealing with creative teams. I'm dealing with the creative side. I'm doing the storybooks and how we're positioning him and, all this other stuff. So it's not just about you guys seeing me out and thinking we're just like hanging, party.
I mean, there are like so many pieces of the way people sort of try to attack you or critique you. There are all of these moments on social media. There are these viral moments that people use to sort of pick apart who you are, your proximity to Jayden, and kind of what that means. What do you say about some of those moments?
The context is always put out. It's unfortunate we're in a world now where clickbait is it, right? I mean, I'm on TikTok and I'm like, man, I'm on TikTok and I'm like, God, like, and it takes a lot out of you to not respond because some of this stuff you're just like, you just want to go full-fledged. I mean, I'm getting tagged on Twitter. I'm getting threatened. It's like nuts. It's crazy. And I'm like, all because of like, I'm a mom that protects my son. And I don't have a problem with it. I hold to it. But the narratives don't need to be painted even worse. But like I said earlier, it's new to them. Like, what parent is certified in handling all their kids' business affairs that's a top 2 athlete right now? It's kind of hard. So, but I just want my son to play the game he loves at the highest level. And we always say, keep the main thing the main thing. And in the world that we're in, it's hard to keep the main thing without a good support system around you to allow you to do that. Jayden doesn't really deal with any of the stuff until it's like vetted through me because I know I'm the person who's closest to him and I know what he likes, what he doesn't like, what time he'll put in, what time he doesn't want. So like I really vet a lot of this stuff before we even bring it to him.
That's Regina Jackson, Jayden Daniels' mom, on the Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark. I'd be interested to get the reaction of Johnny Manziel listening to that. If Johnny Manziel was willing to have a parent look out for him while he was starting his career with the Cleveland Browns, maybe things would have turned out a little bit differently. She says, keep the main thing the main thing. Now, it takes two. He's got to be willing to do that, and he seems to be. He seems to be a tape nerd. He loves this. He loves the work, loves the grind. That's hard to find, a combination of talent and the desire to do what he wants to do. And as Dan Quinn says, he's got this great combination of confidence and humility. And you see it. You see it in all his interviews. He's not a great interview. He doesn't give you a whole lot, but he's cooperative. He's polite. He understands that he's still got a long way to go. He's not satisfied with where he is right now. And I think it's a good relationship, especially since he doesn't seem to chafe at it in any way. He seems to welcome it. And it's unusual. Yes, sure it is. We don't usually see this. And nobody wants to be known as a mama's boy. Oh, boy, he's a mama's boy. He's going to do whatever. No, she's saying, I understand what he likes to do, and I handle all the other stuff. That's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. And he seems to be quite a mature guy. So I don't think there's any issue with that. It's just different. And when we see different, we go, oh, whoa, look at that. I don't think we're gonna look back on this in 5 years and say, oh boy, we should have seen the warning signs. No, I don't think so at all. The only thing you really fear, and this is with any athlete, but it's injury. And Derek Carr has announced his retirement. This was really stunning over the weekend because we're watching what the Saints were doing, and we're going, well, what's their plan at quarterback? I know Derek Carr is supposed to come back, but he's got a shoulder injury. How long is it going to take him to get back, and who do you have to get him? And they wound up drafting Tyler Slogg, Slough. I think it's Slogg is how it's pronounced. And he's number 40 overall. He's 26 years old, or turned 26 before the season starts. He spent 7 years in college because of COVID and injury and so forth. He was at Oregon, Texas Tech, and Louisville. So he's at an age where he's ready to play. We'll see how good he is, but that's an option they have. The others are two guys we saw stink up the joint against the Commanders when they played there. Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener. Nobody's excited about them. If you want to trade for Kirk Cousins, you got to pick up the contract. $27.5 million. Nobody's doing that. Jameis Winston is now with the Giants. Could you trade back for him? Maybe you could. Jimmy Garoppolo's with the 49ers. Mac Jones with the 49ers. Maybe you go Carson Wentz, which brings up an interesting possibility. Actually, two interesting possibilities. One is, let's suppose Carr sits out the entire season. And they say that there's been with the rotator cuff, some injury that he may never recover from. But let's say he starts to feel good again, or he finds a new surgeon, does a procedure that works for him. At 34, he could come back, and he could come back with the Saints, or he could come back with somebody else. Or they go in the direction of just tanking, and they tank for Arch Manning. Now, we don't know how good Arch Manning's going to be. He's only had a couple of starts at Texas. He's going to be their starting quarterback this year. We'll see how good he is. And even if he's really, really good, I think the Manning family may be interested in seeing him play another year. I think that's totally going to be in play. He's only been out of high school for 2 years, has not been the man at Texas, which he will be this year. Let's see what happens. If you're the Manning family, do you want to avoid the Saints in the way that they avoided the the Chargers with Eli Manning? Now, on one hand, that's the royal family of New Orleans. Archie Manning was on horrible teams, a great quarterback with the Saints. If in the right circumstances, he might have been a Hall of Fame quarterback, but they just couldn't protect him. He may have been the most sacked quarterback of all time. Came out in 1971. They didn't start keeping track of sacks officially until 1982, but based on how many times he got dumped in the backfield, he may have been the most sacked of all time. Do you want him to come to New Orleans, where not only would he be seen as the savior of the franchise, but with the same name as his grandfather, the legendary Archie Manning? Do you want to have that happen in New Orleans? So it brings up all kinds of interesting possibilities. I think their best route is to stink it up and see how the draft thing lands next year, it may be Arch Manning, it may be not, maybe he doesn't come out, maybe there's somebody else that emerges as a clear number one, or they don't, or they win enough games so they're not number one. Who knows? But it does appear that they're going to go with this and let the chips fall where they may. And if they wind up with 2 or 3 wins, okay, you reset for next year. And if you get that guy, as we saw here, then you're set. And is Arch Manning that guy who would be facing enormous pressure, not just being a quarterback taken at the top, but having to do it in New Orleans where the grandfather is a legend and to a great degree, the uncles are too. Even his dad. His dad was a great high school player with his brother, Peyton, and then because of injury was not able to have a college career. But both Peyton and Eli are known for their days. And Arch himself, a legend at the same high school, Bishop Newman in New Orleans. So the possibilities are endless with the Saints, and this Derek Carr thing is very, very interesting. I would be surprised if it is totally the end. I would expect him, I may be wrong, but I would expect him to attempt to come back next year. And it reminds me a little bit, although it's not the same thing, there's a quarterback back in 1969 who was coached by Bill Walsh. He was the offensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals. His name was Greg Cook. He had gone to the University of Cincinnati and through about 10 games was looking to be a great, great quarterback. Not just good, but great. And Bill Walsh, who coached Joe Montana and Steve Young, said he may have been the best quarterback he ever coached. Unfortunately, he had a shoulder injury in his rookie year. He tried to come back, couldn't get it done. And as it turned out, he had a rotator cuff injury, which today would be fixed right away. And he'd miss, half of a season or just an off season as he rehabbed it. And he'd be as good as new. But in those days, they didn't have it. He never made it back, and he's one of those great what-if stories in sports. What if they had the surgical techniques to take care of a rotator cuff injury in 1969 or 70 versus what they have today, where it's an easy fix. Just really, really interesting stuff. So we'll follow that, see where that goes. All right, that's a wrap for me. Bram is coming up next, and I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.